I'm just going to play you a small clip here because I want to discuss a specific topic, which is the Eucharist and forming men, priests, to be ministers of the Eucharist, to be priests, other Christ. And it's just interesting, listen to this video today, and this really caught my attention. Just have a little listen to this, and then I just want to make a small commentary on it.
Well, could you tell us how it came about that you ended up applying for the traditional seminary, the Fraternity of St. Peter, rather than at the diocese?
I'd spent 14 months in a pre-seminary house of formation, and at the end of that period, I was accepted to begin at seminary, and I asked if I could ask the rector some questions first. And I asked if I could be permitted to receive Holy Communion kneeling on the tongue there, and he explained why that was not allowed. I asked if we seminarians would be taught the traditional Mass. He said no. I asked if we seminarians could form a study group to study the theology of the Old Mass, and he said no. So that night I wrote to my bishop and said, no, I'm not going there, because I already knew there's no point if I can't get to know this Mass. And at that time I would have been satisfied to be allowed to go once a month or something.
What really caught my attention, listen to that video, and that's Father James Mawdsley. He was a prisoner in Burma for a while. And this man obviously had an experience of the Eucharist and wanted to give his life to the Eucharist, to give his life to our Lord in the most profound, reverent way possible. And to hear him being denied as a seminarian that he couldn't kneel and receive our Lord in the Eucharist is outstanding. And it really shows the problems that we have with formation of priests today. If seminarians are not being taught to love and respect the Eucharist, to kneel for the Eucharist, if we don't have seminarians kneeling for the Eucharist, where are we going for this? I mean, I was a Legionary of Christ for 9 years, seminarian for 9 years. We only ever received Eucharist kneeling on the tongue because that was what the Pope did. And it was a profound experience. And there's one thing that people miss when it comes to the Eucharist. Not only your bodily expressions, how you kneel and receive our communion is a catechesis, but it's also forming your heart. It's forming your heart to better love the Eucharist. And the greatest thing that the church seems to be missing today is we're not allowing people to have that experience of the Eucharist that is going to open their hearts to understanding God better. These small things, kneeling to receive our Lord in the Eucharist, which might extend the Mass 5-10 minutes. These things, offering confession before Mass, cleaning the soul, opening it to grace, opening to God, are basics in the church. Basic things that we should be doing. And I'm not talking here about traditional Latin Mass and Novus Ordo. I'm here talking about what should be done in every Mass. We should be opening souls to grace. We should be teaching our children to respect the Eucharist and not to hand it out as if it's a token, as if it's, this is what we do during this entertainment session, which sometimes the Mass becomes. And this is extremely sad. I mean, I can't understand how that... I mean, I do understand now why so many young priests are struggling with their priesthood, because they haven't had that Eucharistic formation in seminary. They haven't had that deep connection to our Lord in prayer that is needed to carry you through the priesthood. It's needed to carry you through secular life, in a family life setting. Where would we be without the Eucharist? There's a commenter on the page on the blog. He's a Protestant, and he's kind of pushing back at the fact that we're adoring the Eucharist as if it's some idol. But the reality is, once you've experienced our Lord in the Eucharist as a Catholic, you cannot leave that faith. You cannot leave that person, that man that is drawing you to him. And that is the profound experience of the Eucharist, and which we need to elevate in the church. At our Masses, whether they be Novus Ordo or Vetus Ordo, in the vernacular or in Latin, we need to be drawing ourselves near to God in that Eucharist. And today, the traditional Latin Mass, obviously, everything is pointing towards the vine, everything is pointing towards our Lord, the Mass, the prayers, the priest, the congregation. we need to question what's going on in the church. And it's precisely that comment, that young man who wanted to be a seminarian. He later went and joined the Fraternity of St. Peter, but that young man understood, looking for the divine in the church, looking to experience the Eucharist. You should foster that. We should foster that. The more you foster a man in prayer, the more you center a man's life in prayer, the more he will be faithful in his priesthood, and the more he will be an amazing priest. And that's the simple truth of it. And it's time now in the church that we lead the next generation to our Lord in prayer. We lead the next generation to the Eucharist. If we're not doing this, we are failing the next generation. This is critical. That is the central point of our faith, is the Eucharist. It is the thing that unites us. And I've never met a person so deeply in love with the Eucharist that I never got on with. People that love the Eucharist, they just irradiate that presence in their life. And you meet good people that'll go to the Novus Order that are captivated with the Eucharist. They really are. And you can just see it. And that's what we need in the church. Because once you experience Christ, his body and blood, soul and divinity in the Eucharist, it is life-changing. It really is. I hope we see this new generation that will be passionate about the Eucharist, because it's only when you're passionate about something that you convey the seriousness of that to the next generation. And sometimes our worship can be so bland. We treat the Eucharist with such disrespect. And we wonder, how can we engage young people? How can we engage? Live by example first. Live by your example first, and you will engage the next generation. They will remember your example and not just your words. And it's the example of how we treat the Eucharist. It is profoundly different when you go to a church, and we have the Society of St. Pius X that you can see this. It's profoundly different when you go to a church where every single person kneels and receives our Lord in the tongue. Every single person in that chapel. And you go to a Novus Ordo Mass like Knock, where the priest will not even give you communion because you kneel and receive on the tongue. He won't even receive it. And I've been denied it dozens of times. And it's not a protest that I do this. It's because I need to give witness to the next generation that I believe in the Eucharist. And that belief has to radiate into your life, not just, you have to show respect. And it's hard. It's very, very hard. It's a struggle. But I just don't see any other way which we can convey that message to the next generation, that the Eucharist is so profound that we will bend the knee for the Eucharist, for our Lord. Our Lord is such a life-changing experience that for him we bend the knee. It's amazing in this world there was a whole movement of bending the knee, and it became controversial. Well, it became a controversy in the Catholic Church long ago. We stopped bending the knee to our King, Christ our King. We cannot bend the knee to our King. If you can, now I'm not. Of course, like if you can't, if you struggle with health, or if you're elderly, please don't make it sound like I'm asking that everybody. I'm just saying, if you can bend the knee to our Lord in the Eucharist. I think it's something that's so simple. It's such a profound witness of adoration to our God that's present, because we are adoring our God. And even in adoration, when the Eucharist is exposed, it's amazing how many people don't even know how to genuflect to our Eucharist, or even know what the word genuflect actually means. But let our Lord work. Anyway, that was just that particular sentence in that video. It explains a lot why seminary formation is so bad today. It explains a lot why there's a crisis of vocations, and explains a lot why young priests are in crisis in Ireland, for example. God, when I hear the stories of what is going on with some priests that have been ordained over the last 10, 15 years, I said, what type of formation did these guys have? And when I hear this commentary around the Eucharist, I can say, now I understand a lot. I understand a lot. You know, if we don't get the basics of prayer and the Eucharist right, forget about being a priest. It's such a difficult vocation that you will struggle if you don't have your life centered on the Eucharist, on prayer. You know, give your heart to one thing in our life. If we have our heart divided in any vocation, we will never advance in life. If you're a man that's, you know, married man that's having affairs, you know, that division in your life will destroy you. It'll destroy one or other women. It'll destroy your do you know, these divisions in people's lives destroy your lives. And it's the same in the priesthood. If your heart is divided between, oh, well, look, I'm looking for distraction from this ministry that's really not fulfilling me, and I'm doing stuff on the side instead of dedicating my time to Christ in the Eucharist, sooner or later that ministry will collapse, which it has happened to various priests in Ireland. And, you know, I'm not going to blog about them. You know, that's their lives. I'm talking about the root of the problem. The root of the problem and the crisis in the priesthood and the crisis in the faith is the Eucharist, which should be a sign of unity. It should be a sign of unity. And if people were kneeling to receive our Lord on the tongue in both masses, we would be united. If priests in the Novus Ordo read the text that's in black and did the text that's in red and gave and respected the Eucharist, we would not have the crisis we have in the church. The crisis we have in the church over the last 50 years is a crisis of the Eucharist, of lack of respect for the Eucharist. And if there wasn't this, you know, we wouldn't have the situation we have in the church. I'm absolutely sure in the 80s, when Archbishop Lefebvre was looking at the collapse of the faith around Europe, because he saw it coming. He was a visionary, he was a prophet, he saw it coming. I'm absolutely sure Archbishop Lefebvre was shown every horrifically badly presented mass and all this. All of these things were shown to him. You know, where are we going, guys? So, like, it's a call to arms, really, and to us laity. We have to show respect for the Eucharist. It's only that way that we will pass on the faith. You know, from the Eucharist, the renewal of the church comes. And, you know, John Paul II, he gave us that beautiful document, his last document before he died, which is called De Ecclesia Eucharistia, from the church. The Eucharist, it comes from the church. I presume that's the translation. I just know it in Latin, De Ecclesia Eucharistia. Beautiful document. Beautiful. And I can understand why the Pope wrote this at the end of his pontificate, because he saw the problems. And we see it there in that video. You know, if we're not living for the Eucharist, respecting the Eucharist, teaching the next generation to bend the knee for the Eucharist, we're failing. We're failing. Destroy the Eucharist, you start to destroy the faith, you destroy the church. The Eucharist has to be the unity that keeps us together in the church. It has to be. And we have to live to love and respect our Lord in the Eucharist. Anyway, a very passionate topic for me. And I hope this inspires other people to do the same. It's a very simple thing you need to do. Kneel and receive our Lord in the Eucharist. Love him. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.